Hi, good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us live on this beautiful Wednesday. And today we'll be talking about you've got to recognize what's going on in your life in order to be able to change it. So, in that, I think earlier on the week, oh, there we go, Emma's here, I'm going to bring her in. Hi, Emma. Adding Emma. I think one of the big things that we need to acknowledge is, by denying things in our life. Hi, Em, how are you, sweetheart? Good to
Yeah.
see you. It was a little bit of a case of who's starting what, right? Are you going? Am I going?
I did. I had a moment. I've got to admit, I'm like, shall I? Shall I? And I don't know if you remember Pam. There was a little while back, and we both went on, and for some reason, Facebook decided to live both our voices at the same time on two separate videos. So I was trying to avoid that, but it is what it
It all works. It all works as it should, right?
does. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Like I was saying, if we deny things in our life, we're not acknowledging what we need to change, right? So it is about taking ownership of where we're at and where we're standing. If we're not going to recognize what changes we need to make in our life, how do we move forward from that?
Yeah.
Um,
No.
how how did you feel about that?
Yeah, funnily enough, I was listening to a podcast um, this morning, only a 15-minute one from Brendan Burchant. I do like his podcasts, and he was talking about something similar, and it was really about sort of facing the reality,
Yeah,
and it can be tough when you are in a very challenging situation to actually really face what's going on. So it's about really not lying to yourself, I guess. Because sometimes we can say, oh, it'll all be okay, it'll get better. And you know what? It does. And I'm not saying it won't. But the problem with saying constantly, sort of, it'll get better, what you're not doing is taking the action or the change or making the changes to have a different outcome. And that
100%.
was what I thought was very, very interesting. It's okay to reassure ourselves. It's okay to have that positive outlook. It's okay to have, sort of manifest what it is that we want to achieve, that where everything is going to be all right, and to keep that calm sentiment. But then to not change anything and to do everything exactly the same, I think that might be classed as burying your head in the sand. Maybe.
100%. I think what's that meme that says, do the same thing 100 times over and over, you get exactly the same results. So
Mm.
it is about acknowledging and taking stock. I think it's not so much seeing what you're doing wrong, it's assessing, if you're in
Yeah.
anything in life that you're doing, if you sit down and assess where it is that you want to go, why do you want to get there, and how far you are, what do
Mm.
you need to do? The environment changes constantly. Your knowledge base, your confidence changes constantly. So with that, you've acquired all these new tool sets or not.
Mm.
So what new action steps do you need to put in place or to implement in
Yeah.
order for you to change and get a different result, to get that desired result? And the closer you get to that desired result, is that desired result still the same? Are you still on track? Or has that morphed into something else? And
Mm.
this is not a case of dropping your dreams. We're not going from pillar to post and just chopping and changing. This
Mm.
is when we're focusing on a particular goal that we have. And as you evolve with your goal, making those necessary changes. I mean, look at our webinar, right? This has been a long time coming, and we started with a seed,
One.
and it's grown, and as it's grown, and as we've nurtured it and fed it, it is evolved and it's morphed. It's still the webinar. It's still going to give us the results that we wish to share with others, but we've acquired new tools along the way, right? Correct? And it
Well,
was realizing where we needed to make changes and how we had to go from that.
it's really interesting because when you were just going through, just explaining that, the same word kept coming up for me: perfection, perfection, perfection. What sometimes we can do is we can get stuck on an idea that, and then when we're moving into that and we're making our transition into that, you know, like you say, it might be that that's not what we need to know. Once we're learning sort of all our strategies and tools along the way in order to get there, suddenly we might do a 45-degree turn in a different direction, and that's okay, you know. And so, because sometimes we can get a little bit too driven by the head. I understand that it has every place in our decision making and getting us from A to B. I get it. Sometimes we have to get into the right headspace, but when we're just being driven completely by the head, we can miss that opportunity to do that 45-degree turn because we're so stuck on perfection and, well, that was what I wanted. Now, let's say if we had a really long-term goal, well, not long, a medium-term goal. So let's say 6 months. I don't know about you, but 6 months ago, I was quite a different person. You know,
Yeah.
I really was. I mean, I wouldn't say I've moved massively, but I have grown in 6 months. And maybe what Emma wanted 6 months ago, or let's say a year. Let's push it a little bit further back. A year ago, slightly different now because again I am paying attention to the U-turns and the little 40, and I'd like to think 45 degrees. I'm just a little bit different courses as I go. So
Mm.
don't, not to get stuck on that perfection. So when you face that reality, realize what you need to change. Flexibility, being flexible in that decision making, in that learning process, is really important so that you do actually end up, you're not fighting for something that doesn't no longer resonates with you.
100%. I think it's about being fluid. And, it brings me back to my example that I always use about course correcting. If we're getting on a plane in Brisbane and we're flying to Sydney, we get on the plane and we fly, but we're not taking it into account, and we don't realize all this the course corrections the pilot has to do. We know that we're going to Sydney. We know that that's the end result. But he has had to deviate, a little bit higher, right, go higher in altitude or lower in altitude, or we had to go around a big storm. We didn't want to go through the storm, or, there was a bit of a holding pattern before we could land. We just know
Mm.
we got on a plane, we arrived there. But what did the pilot have to go through to actually get us? It's never just a straight line. There's lots of variants that need to be considered from Brisbane to Sydney or from A to B. So I think it is that whole acknowledging where you're at is really not about um, critiquing self, but more just assessing self. See what it was that you wanted, assess where you're at now, assess what changes and growth has taken place, and then what changes do you need to make. Because if you are honest with yourself, you'll see that something is working or something is not. And if it's not working, what can you do to change that? Remember, I'll
Mm.
go back to the statement. Denying it doesn't fix it.
Mm.
Denying it is not going to change it. It is really fully embracing where you're at and what needs to happen.
No, that's absolutely, absolutely. And it comes down a lot to accountability, like being accountable and actually pulling ourselves
Mm,
up every now and then. And you know what? We don't have to do it alone. We really don't. And that's why sometimes it's good to talk to people, and because just by speaking what it is that's on your mind, speaking that's something that isn't, that's great in your life and that you want to have a different outcome from, talking to somebody else, not only might they have really good ideas, but they might be the one who actually says to you, hey, how are you getting on with that? And, oh, did you manage to? It's like that
yeah,
verification,
yeah,
keeping it
yeah,
completely on track. And, it's great, safety in numbers, teamwork, that can work. And that doesn't mean you going it alone is something I wouldn't suggest either. With personal stuff, sometimes it's a kind of personal thing for me, and I'm trying to figure it out, and that's okay too, as long as I then become my own best friend and start saying, hey,
yeah,
come on, you said you were going to get this done. Like, let's talk about maybe a health issue. Oh, come on, you were going to have this amount of water a day, and you're not getting it done. What can we do in order to what can I do for myself that is going to help with that? And for me, it was like just literally drawing 8 squares on a piece of paper and marking them off. And so during the day,
yeah,
I know I've done my tall 8 glasses of water every day. And so,
yeah,
I didn't have to kind of, grab a team to get me to do that. However, I did have to hold myself accountable because, again, you'll be, oh, she'll be all right. It's the Australian way. She'll be all right.
Yeah. I think the term that comes to mind is awareness brings power to accountability.
Like that. Yes.
Awareness, being aware of your surroundings, being aware of your internal environment and where you sit, that awareness gives you the power to maintain your accountability to achieving your goals. I like that. We'll write that down.
We're gonna have to get that mean. Let's get that. And you know what that thing with awareness is? Now it's gone straight out my head. It will come back in a minute. I thought, oh,
Yeah.
I'll just say that. So the meme was awareness.
Awareness. We'll have
We're
to
gonna have
rewind that. Come on, you know me. It comes in, it comes out. It's out there now. We'll have to, yeah. We'll watch the replay. But yeah, awareness is power to accountability. With
Mm,
that awareness, you have the ability to keep yourself on track. To keep yourself accountable.
mm,
And if you're not going to do that, then it just becomes another one of those things that you've thrown out there, and you're hoping for the best. And
yeah.
sometimes that hoping for the best isn't creating the right energetic space for you to achieve anything, because hoping for the best is not taking action. You've got to take action. With action, you create momentum. With momentum, you achieve success because you're then in the driver's seat and you're going. You can't, if you've ever tried to push a car, if you needed to get a car off the road because it's broken down, right? When you start, it is quite challenging. But once
Mm,
the momentum is there, the car moves, and it's like, okay, we can move it off the side of the road. So you have to give yourself that push, and that push might be a little bit of a challenge, but once you've created that action, creates that momentum. So I think that that's the most important thing about all of this, is that creating that awareness of your space, surroundings, internal environment, external environment, to
yeah.
then keep yourself on track of where you're at, because then you can evaluate and really determine um, the changes or the course corrections that need to be made in order to achieve your success in anything. It's health, wealth, relationships with yourself, relationship with your partner, relationships with your friends and family, your relationships with those that you work and surround, collaborate with. Sometimes you need to be honest and collaborate with someone in order to get there, and other times, like you say, you need to just go within and do it for yourself. So in those aspects, I think, when the topic came up, do we what do we need to assess in ourselves? I think that's the biggest thing, is holding ourselves accountable through awareness.
And I think it would be unfair at this point to talk about this without actually discussing a little bit about overwhelm, because quite often the reason why we're not facing what we need to face and hiding away is because it's just too overwhelming.
Mm,
And we get that, and that's okay, because I understand that can be challenging. So quite often, if there's something big that you need to change, you can take it one step at a time. Is that's a
mm.
really, again, for the
Bite-sized
people, you
chunks. Yeah.
really important to just bring it down into manageable pieces, that and
Yeah.
even sort of the soft rewards or hard rewards, if you like buying things, at the end of achieving one particular part to get into that change. So for instance, I could say, well, I'm going to address my health. So we've got our 6 essentials of health, right? The 6 essentials was what you eat, what you drink, how you breathe, exercise, sleep, and how you think. So I might say, right, okay, well, taking on all 6 in one day, might be a bit too much for some people. So let's say I started with my water, and I could say, right, okay, I'm going to do that for week 1. That's my thing. I'm going to start there. I'm going to make sure I have my 2 to 3 liters of water, and then by the end of day 7, I'm going to treat myself down for half a day on the beach and go for a swim and read my book and just relax. And then by doing that, it feels like, oh, okay, I'm already looking after my health.
Mm.
Celebrating those wins, so important in life.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. But that comes from creating that awareness, keeping
Yeah.
yourself accountable, taking stock of where you're at, not denying your reality. Do not deny your reality. You know, awareness to your reality, I think, is definitely the power, and that holds the key to change in your life. And it allows you the opportunity to see what resources and or assistance you might need.
Yeah, it is. And it
Mm.
comes down to, again, it's like one of these, I say a to-do list. We like to call it an intention list. I can't seem to get from A to B. I can't seem to get started. Well, what is it that you're lacking in order to
Mm.
get started? Well, it could be time, it could be money, it could be motivation. Then address those issues and
Mm.
take some time to actually think. That's what I was going to talk about with awareness. Now it's come back. We live in a world where everything is instantaneous. We're always do, decision, decision, decision. And, as much as I love this technology, the social media technology, it does have its downsides. And I think
Mm.
you have to acknowledge those downsides is that we get a little bit too involved with everybody else's lives. We're getting up in the morning, we're scrolling, we're answering emails, and
Yeah.
suddenly we become this thing where we're just constantly involved in everything else. And especially with, I'm going to be honest, with Facebook, with the news feed, we're going through a rate of knots, like, dislike, want to read, don't want to read, like that one's funny, share, like, on we go, on we go, on we go. And self-awareness and awareness of what you need to do really does take a little bit more, or it takes a different part of your brain, I think. Okay, instead
Mm-hmm.
of like kind of decision making, we need to go into that, the part of the brain that is about reflection, that's actually consideration. And the thing with the
Mm.
constant doing and the decision making is it becomes very, very quick. So we're used to kind of this continuous. Like, well, when you're having to sit down and have that awareness and work out what it is, well, that can be a slower process, and it's not so immediately gratifying as you would using different parts of your brain to make quick decisions. So self-awareness, if you're finding that you're not able to sort of step into that, then maybe make a decision, have a technology free day, build that
Mm.
into your schedule. And in that time, you can, if you're going for a little walk or you're spending some time with some loved ones, you might find that this awareness of what you need and how to move forward so that you can face that reality
Mm.
starts actually just coming at you rather than you going to seek it. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
No, I follow you. Good stuff. I think there's a lot there to process and a lot for us to work through, and certainly I would like to put it through, to our audience and those that do watch with us. What do you do to keep yourself accountable when you've made a
Mm,
decision to achieve a goal? So please do share with us. It's always interesting to get that information through, and it might inspire someone else. How do you keep yourself motivated? How do you create a space to create awareness? What are the things that you use in order to, what kind of course corrections do you use for yourself? What exercises do you use for yourself to do that? Do you stop? Do you breathe? Do you write lists? Do you
yeah.
go and speak to a friend? How do you assess where you're at? We'd love to hear from you.
Mm,
On that, we have our workshop, breathe your way to a best life, 2 degrees at a time. One of those great opportunities for us to create awareness of self, awareness of our space, and the changes that we can take. That's happening on the 2nd of November. Tickets are still available through Humanitics. Please do pop on. I'll pop the link in so you guys can have a look at that. We have our coffee on the beach next week. Wednesday is Coffee on the Beach. We're going to actually go to CK Whole Foods on
yeah.
Brisbane Road. So those that would like to come and join us for a coffee, we're going to take it inside to the coffee shop. So we'll be there if you wish to come and join us and have a chat and share where you're at and see, meet some new people. Please do come and join us. I'll pop those links in below and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Excellent.
Mm.
Well, considering we've just had a lovely conversation about facing reality and the awareness and getting some space, I think your workshop's going to be absolutely wonderful for helping people get from that space of overwhelm into where they need to go with that beautiful breathing. So, I would grab the tickets. It's going to be a wonderful day.
Definitely. Oh, and remember, we've also got the vision board, Buzz Your Board on the 7th of December. So those links are there. I have been made aware that the link wasn't working yesterday, so I am in the process of looking at that and making sure that that's 100% again. So lots of things happening. Yeah, lots of things happening. So look, I think we've said a lot today, lots to process. So thank you to everyone that did watch, that joined us. Thank you. For those of you that watch post live, we always appreciate you taking the time. Please do like, comment, and share. Always a good thing on the Facebook platform to get the messages out there.
Okay.
Thank you for joining in. I've enjoyed our
Oh,
conversation.
that's okay. One very quick thing. All these lives are now available on our YouTube channel, which is Best Studio Pam and Emma, and I'll stick the link in there. So if you know somebody who might appreciate hearing this message, you can share through YouTube as well if they're not on Facebook. So thank you,
Yeah,
Pam.
that's easy because you can't always find them on the Facebook page. So,
No,
you know, that the secrets with all the postings. So
scroll,
thanks. Yeah,
scroll.
that's great. You've done an amazing job with that. All right. See you all next week. Bye bye.
Bye, Pammy. Bye.